Track wrestling here at the NAIA National Championships with Menlo College Athletic Director Keith Spataro. Keith, you've seen NAIA wrestling make exponential gains here in the last 20 years or so. You guys were kind of out in the forefront. Can you share with our audience what transpired at Menlo here about 18 years ago or so?
18 years ago, yeah. Sure. You know, one of the things was, you know, not different than any other small private school. There was an enrollment issue, and they were looking for opportunities to grow their enrollment at Menlo College. I happened to know the athletic director at the time, and really in passing talked about, hey, why don't we add wrestling down there? I got a phone call a day later and went down, met with vice president and a few board of trustee members, put together a pitch to add men's and women's wrestling. And a day later, I was literally was offered a job, and I was off and running. It was the middle of January, so it was middle of the school year. And we were able to secure 47 student athletes in year one between men's and women's, and it was, you know, and it's just taken off ever since then. It was really cool to watch the thing go.
Was that surprising? You got that many in year one?
No, it wasn't, and here's why. Because, you know, so the truth of the story behind it is that part of the pitch was that I wasn't going to get paid to do the job. So I was like, listen, don't pay me, don't fund it. I'll prove to you that we'll do it, and then when I do it, I need to be paid and I need to be funded. So in year one, I didn't receive any money. I fundraised all of the money for our operation budget, and I fundraised to get our mats. We had old beat-up mats that we had bought from other schools. But I was really confident in what we could do and the opportunity that we could provide, and the disconnect between number of opportunities at the high school level and the college level in California was significant. And there really was no other thing like us. There was no private schools really except for Stanford, and clearly a different group of student athletes than what we provided. So I was super confident in what we could provide, and I was super confident in our coaching staff could be able to recruit. And we just hit it like crazy. I mean, we worked our tails off in that first year, and it was awesome. Yeah. So no surprises for me.
Why?
Well, you know, I was pretty confident in our ability. I had already been at the community college level, and, you know, community college level in California is a tough place to recruit to, you know, because there's no scholarships, and, you know, there's lots of work that goes into it. So I was pretty connected with the community college coaches, so I knew that I could get, I knew I could work on those relationships and be able to build our initial foundation with JC kids, and essentially that's what we did. You know, the majority of our roster in the first few years were junior college kids, and so I really took advantage of the relationships that I had built with the JC coaches, and I was able to provide opportunities. And at that time, a lot of our kids were leaving, and they were going to Dickinson State, and they were going to Missouri Valley, and they were going, you know, to Jamestown. So they were kind of getting out of there, and so it was like an opportune time for me to start a program when I knew all of these kids had been getting taken out of the state, and they wanted to stay local. They wanted to stay in California. So, and then of course, you know, I was confident in my ability to work, you know, and that really ultimately is what it came down to, is I worked, you know, and me and my assistant coach, Ruben Tamayo, who was also my assistant at Skyline and my teammate in college. I mean, we just uncovered every rock you could uncover in that first few years, and we got after it, you know. So it wasn't a surprise. And we knew we had a really good plan of what we were going to do, and we got after it. So,
through the years, how many people have come to you and wanted to take a page out of your playbook of what you've done here? How many programs can you look across the country have you had an influence on, directly or indirectly?
You know, I don't know exactly what the number is, but I know that I've influenced quite a few. And you know, we gave them the playbook. I mean, we shared it. We knew, I mean, the experience that I had personally in starting a program was awesome. And I wanted to be able to share that with some other people. So I know that, you know, and literally I took our presentation and put it together for other schools across the country and sent it to them, you know, with their logos on it, their cost of attendance, and you know, so I know that we've had an influence, especially up and down the western United States. And I promise you that there's not an AD at the NAIA level that hasn't heard me, you should add wrestling speech. So whether I gave them my direct PowerPoint presentation and say, here, just use this, or I beat them up in a meeting saying, hey, listen, you need to add wrestling. It's a perfect opportunity for your school. So, that's one of the things that I'm probably most proud about in my wrestling career is the influence that I've been able to have on athletic directors and college presidents about adding the sport. I can't take full credit for any of it, but I know that I'm influencing because I'm like the hammer on them as much as I can. So it's been great.
What's your pitch? We probably don't have enough time here to go through it all, but abridged version, what are selling points for you?
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest thing is that, if you just look at the sheer volume of high school wrestlers there are compared to the number of spots that there are in college, there's a disconnect. There's an instant opportunity for you to improve and enhance your enrollment using wrestling as the vehicle. It's that simple. I mean, and I think, I'm biased, but all the other characteristics that go into the wrestling community, the family that's associated with it, the family feel associated with it, the types of kids that it can bring to your campus, the culture that it can bring to your campus. But ultimately, at the end of the day, most of these small college presidents those things are important. But the important piece is putting students in the school, and I think that is really the biggest pitch is this will guarantee you students, and I think the second part of it is trying to get a qualified coach in there to ensure that transition is really smooth. Because you certainly don't want to promise something, get a coach in there that can't recruit or can't fulfill what you're saying you could do, and then have it go bad on you. And we haven't had too many of those, as we've added through the NAIA. We've had some really good hires and we've had some really good ads. As evidence this weekend in this tournament, it's really taken off and flourishing.
What did wrestling do for you? What has wrestling made you want to go to bat for wrestling for?
Yeah, I mean, everything I am today, the position that I hold at the college and everything that I am as a person, as a father, as a husband, has been attributed to wrestling and the role models that I've had, the people that have influenced me in my life. And I know that's fairly cliche, but it's absolute for me. I mean, I've had some unbelievable people that have taken a personal approach to helping me become who I am today. And, and I think there's just something that's unique about wrestling than any other sport. I've scored touchdowns and I've scored basketball baskets. There's nothing better than the intrinsic value of being out on that mat by yourself and winning, and that translates in so many parts of your life. I've gone through death and I've gone through divorce and I've gone through babies being born, I've gone through poverty, and all of it circles back to you can't give up. And that is attributed directly to this great sport, and I think that's an important element. I want everybody to be able to do that. If we had a society that didn't give up, we'd be way better off. And this sport teaches it. I mean, it's feast or famine, and I would say that's the thing that has been most influential in my life is it teaches you that. And if you're going to be successful in this sport, you got to have that grit, so if I can influence more administrators and more people to participate in it, then that's what I'm going to do.
What are the biggest hurdles to get over in doing that?
Yeah, I think the biggest hurdles to get over are finding the right coach, but I think that's true of any sport. If you added a basketball program and you hired the wrong coach, you're going to have problems. So I think the first hurdle is making sure you have the right coach. And I think it's I tell our coaches all the time in all of our sports, you got to have the right fit. You got to have the right student athletes that fit our institute, fit our program, and fit your philosophy. If you don't, it's going to go bad. So I think the biggest hurdle for an administrator is making sure that you stay true to what your philosophical views are as relates to college athletics. Hire a coach that fits that, but also can make sure that they can recruit and they're connected and they're wired into the wrestling community, because they may fit philosophically, but if they can't recruit, it's going to be a mess for you. And then I think the other part of it is getting the community involved. So finding the people that are going to be supportive. When I started the program at Menlo, people were fired up about it. They were excited about it because we had just gone through maybe a 7-8 year period where we lost a lot of schools in California. They dropped due to Title IX. So there was a good rally of support behind us and helped us raise that money in the first year. It helped us get equipment that we needed. So I think being able to get your community involved right away and kind of wrapping their arms around that thing is an important part of it, because a school can't do it all. You know, you look at it and you add a wrestling program, it's $25,000 a mat. You want 2 of them, it's $50,000. Who knows where you're going to practice it? We rolled the mats out in the gym at Menlo all the years I was the coach. We didn't have a wrestling room. But there's an expense associated with that, and that's where you got to get your community involved, because most of these schools that are adding wrestling don't just have money laying around where they can just, okay, here's your wrestling room. So getting a wrestling room is a hurdle, or getting the equipment necessary to start that program is a hurdle, and you got to get that community involvement to make it happen. You
talk about hiring the right coach, and I imagine you've hired a lot of coaches in various sports through the years. What are characteristics you look for?
Yeah, I think one of the things that really stands out to me is being able to find somebody that has been successful in a suboptimal situation. That's what I look for. So if I go hire, I get resumes all the time for coaches that have won like crazy, but they've been in optimal situations, and I look right away at somebody's resume that has been really good in a suboptimal situation, and they've had to overcome, persevere, and get it done. And I think that's number one. Number two, I look for somebody that it's not about them, it's about the kids. If we are hiring people and it's an extension of your competitive career and it's more about you than it is about the student athletes, it's a bad fit, because I've always found that if it's more about them, they'll give you more. If it's less about you and more about them, they'll give you more. So that's the second thing that we look for, without question. And I think the third thing is we got to have a teacher. You know what I mean? Like, I think so much of college coaching at all sports and all levels is about the success that they had as an athlete. They were a good basketball player, they were a good baseball player, they were a good wrestler, but that doesn't always translate to being a good teacher. And being a good teacher of the game is really an important element that I look for when I hire coaches. And we really dive into it when we bring them on campus. And then I think other things, just being aligned with me philosophically, being able to relate to me and my staff are important elements too. But I would say those are the three things that stand out the most.
You look at this tournament and where it is now. What did it look like at the beginning for Menlo? What did the national tournament look like?
The thing is, I tell people all the time that it's a tough tournament now because there's so many teams. But back then, it was probably tougher in this respect because then you had to have 10, 12 All-Americans to even sniff at being in the top 5 because there were fewer opportunities. So everybody was recruiting the same tough kids. So every team was more deep. You had deeper squads back then. So what I've seen though through the year, and that's one of the things that has inspired me is as that talent starts dispersing amongst all the teams, you need fewer and fewer kids to be successful. Like, this week in our program, we have 3 All-Americans and we're in the top 10. 3 All-Americans when I coach, you wouldn't have been in the top 20. I mean, you just couldn't sniff at it. There was our second year, we were national runner-up. Our third year, we were national runner-up. We had 10 All-Americans and we weren't even close to the national champion. So I think what's happened is it's dispersed the depth. It's created a lot more positive energy around the tournament because now everybody's getting a piece of the pie. When I was coaching, it was 4 or 5 teams and they were loaded, and their depth was just crazy good. And so that's the thing that I've seen the most is I think the top level talent is still the same, but I think it's being dispersed out amongst a lot of schools now,
I want to say that the last time this tournament was here, or at least the last time I covered it here, which was, 5 years ago or so, there were like 35 teams in NAIA. Yeah. And now we're upwards of 60. It'll probably go upwards of 70 next year. Yeah. What does NAIA wrestling look like? What does this tournament look like in 10 years?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question, and I think that's a debate right now. I think if you ask the Coaches Association in the NAIA, they want to make it bigger and they want to grow it to a larger number. But I still think, I think we need to take into consideration that it's important that they have to qualify. And I think keeping the numbers at a manageable size, I'd hate to see this, honestly, to go to a 3-day tournament like the NCAA Division I. Our counterparts, Division II and Division III, are still 16-man brackets, and we're a 32-man bracket. So my hope anyway is that we keep it around this size, maybe a little bit bigger, but keep it ultra competitive. You know, we still have kids in this tournament that are hovering around 500 records, and I'd say in 2 or 3 years you're not going to see that anymore. You're going to see the cream's really going to rise to the top, and it's going to be even more competitive tournament. If we start getting too big too soon, I think it's probably going to water down, and then what happens is you have a lot of bonus points in the first round, and it makes the first couple rounds uninteresting to me. I would rather see those first couple rounds be dogfights and really grinds. You know, if you go to the NCAA Division I tournament, every match is a grind. That's where I'd like to see this tournament be, and I think it can be really soon. I think we got to be careful about how many kids we let come to the tournament. We need to keep it in a position where every match means something, you know, and it's really important. I mean, heck, Grandview had, I don't know how many bonus points they had in the first round. It was extraordinary, you know. We got to get to the point where that's not happening, and I think when that stops happening, then we can start looking at growth, you know,
sure,
potential.
Sure. Going back to the beginning and what we talked about then, and looking at where the sport is right now at this level.
Yeah.
Did you envision this?
You know,
because we're talking, what, 20-some programs probably back then?
Yeah. You know, here's the thing is that we had a really committed group of coaches in the organization at the time that were really interested in spreading the word. The one thing that was amazing to me when I got in, you know, and I'm seeing this in men's volleyball right now. Men's volleyball at the NAIA level is a sport that is emerging, and it's growing, and it's developing. But you know, when you talk to volleyball coaches and another program adds, they get all territorial, and they're like, "Oh, this is going to hurt us, and this is going to be negative." And that was never the case in men's wrestling, you know. And now in women's wrestling, everybody is embracing this growth and embracing the development of it. So, you know, when we first started, and we had that first group of coaches in there, and we created a growth and enhancement committee within the Coaches Association. They were all in, you know, so I didn't know that we'd grow this fast and this big so soon, but I had no doubt that we were going to grow because they were all for it. They really, truly embraced growth. They truly embraced supporting other schools, adding, and I tell you, I'm seeing it now with men's volleyball and bowling, and you know, those coaches don't want other schools to add. You know, it's really it's a completely different mindset than what I saw with men's wrestling, you know.
Wow.
So it's been awesome, you know, and I knew we were going to take off. It just was going to take a few to really jump at it, but I probably couldn't have predicted this. But you watch it; we'll be the biggest division pretty soon. We'll be over 100 pretty quick here. I mean, we have 10 schools in the Western United States that could add right now and make it really good for us. So I can see it growing to 100 really fast, you know.
One of the things I got to ask you about, you guys just won a women's national title.
Yeah.
How cool was that? What did that mean to your school?
You know, it was amazing. And, you know, so we have a school of under 1,000 students. For us to win a national title in anything is pretty extraordinary. I'll tell you what it did, though, is it made everybody on the campus believe that it can be done. And it lit a fire under our coaches and our other programs. They believe that it can be done now, you know, and it was super awesome for our women to experience that. You know, we needed to win in the finals. We had 4 in the finals. We needed to win 3, so the pressure was on. It wasn't an easy thing, and when we won that 3rd match in the finals, it was awesome. I mean, the feeling that, you know, that just, you know, I'm not gonna lie, I started crying a little bit, you know, just because I've worked so hard to change our department. One of the reasons I got out of wrestling is because I thought our department needed help, and I've worked really hard to try and build a department of competitiveness and consistency. And for us to do that was really, it was kind of like a full circle. I was like, yes, we're almost there now, you know, and it inspired behavior. I'm telling you, the rest of the coaches think they can do it now, you know. So I'm excited to see where it takes us, and I think it's gonna transcend our department for sure, you know.
We talked about where NAIA wrestling goes in the next decade. How about women's wrestling at the college level? What do you see there?
Yeah, you know, I'm a little nervous about the non-NAIA schools. I think the NAIA schools are going to explode quick. They'll be like the men real soon. It'll be, you know, 50, 60, 70 schools really fast. They're going to see the opportunity. The one thing that I worry about with the NC2A and the NJCA is there's not enough for either of them to stand alone. So I'm worried a little bit about they're being able to sustain this, because the other issue with it's if we grow too fast, we're not going to have enough grassroots people. So we really need to start focusing on the grassroots programs for the women. We need to start getting the high school associations to getting them to have their own sport, and being able to have their own state championships, because whereas with the men, we have all of these opportunities, all these athletes and not that many opportunities. With the women, we're starting to go the other way. We have more opportunities at the college level and less athletes wrestling at the high school level. So I really think we need to shift our focus a little bit. We've done really good at inspiring colleges to add wrestling, and they've done it, and they've had success, and it's been good addition and value to their school. But what we don't want to do is run out of women at those programs, because then it's hard to defend having them. If you have small enrollment, our whole argument this whole time is build your enrollment through this sport. So we really got to. The whole women's organization's got to shift their focus, and they really got to be on point as it relates to the grassroots programs.
Hey, great stuff. Thanks much.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.